What do you suppose it is when you hear another person doing something what you would consider to be bragging, saying things that just shouldn't be said, like you know more than most other people or many other people? Maybe you are spiritually awakened or enlightened, or maybe you are genius, or maybe you are more perceptive, maybe you are clairvoyant, or you're telepathic, or some of these things are this. How many of us are instantly inclined to ridicule and to throw up our hands around our ears because when people say something that they sound as if they are speaking from a higher position than most, the herd don't like it. Why don't the herd don't like it? Why is it an innate thing? Why is it that it's just a trigger that comes about in an instant? Well, my hypothesis is simply that in the Western world we've all supposedly had a very, very similar education. We've all been to the same schools, we've all studied the same curriculum, and we should all know the same stuff. And how dare somebody say or think or espouse or brag that they know something that we don't know? How is it that they think they can know this? And how is it they think they're better? What's so special about them? In the West, we've got a very, very big issue with that. And there's something else that the West has got a very big issue with. And it's in relation to the supernatural. Now, in recent times I read some huge volumes, double volumes, consisting of 1,500 pages. These separate volumes. One of them is called The Secret Doctrine by Madame Blavatsky, and the other one is called Isis Unveiled. And they constitute 4 books which are this thick, and they start from the very, very beginning of spiritual phenomenon, mostly in the Western world, but also incorporating Eastern stuff. And from the very, very beginning of people who started to investigate these phenomena. And in the 1800s, there were many people, prominent psychologists and clinicians of varying varieties that go to these seances and table rapping meetings and all these different sorts of stuff. And indeed, at the time, early 1900s, Freud and Jung went to them as well to investigate what on earth was going on. Freud was absolutely dismissive of anything pertaining to the supernatural, whereas Jung absolutely embraced it. And Jung is the go-to now for anybody that wants to learn about this sort of stuff. And Jung spoke about the anima, the animus, the archetypes, complexes, collective, unconscious, group unconscious, all different sorts of things. And so when I started out on my spiritual journey, I was having lots of these very, very paranormal experiences. Let me wait till this traffic's done. Get into the chicken packing factories. Look at you. Herds and herds of meh, meh. Here's me like a little wolf or fox, just darting across that devil's ley line, going to enjoy myself. So, the supernatural and the paranormal in the Western world has absolutely been poo-pooed. And anybody that's remotely got involved in that was dismissed and ridiculed and all the rest of it. And it's only really in recent times that more and more people are starting to embrace it, due to the advent of the internet and YouTube, where we can become privy to it. We can listen to people speaking intelligently about this stuff. We can listen to a billion near-death experiences and all different sorts of other things like that. So a few more people are becoming more and more open to it. But the clinical profession is still very, very closed to it in many respects. And so I was listening. I've been listening to a spate of people speaking about internal family systems therapy, which deals with parts, and these parts are said to be, from the very bravest of people, they're said to be energies, spirits, individuated characters, characters from the external which come to have residence within a person, like possessions. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And so the guy that keeps popping up all the time is a guy called Bob, or Robert Falconer. And he's been leading the way, being the bravest out of his fraternity of so-called professionals, because he's dealing with people who have these attachments and alter personalities and characters and all this sort of stuff. So I never knew about internal family systems until very recently, until I started to do this therapy. But I knew about all of the Jungian facets, and I knew that I had experienced these supernatural things a great deal, i.e. having what I knew to be Yahweh chastise me about my transgressions of love for 3.5 hours. Jesus telling me, showing me what unconditional love is. Satan offering me the opportunity to take my life and end this hellish experience. Angels coming to me and giving me incredible cryptic messages. I've encountered myriad astral beings of many varieties. I've seen God and angels and kind of like demonic things in the clouds whilst taking DMT on so many occasions, and they're absolutely real. And so I always maintained that from a very, very young age, as young as I can remember, I was never alone. There was always something walking with me. And this enabled me to have the power and the strength and the confidence and the lack of fear to travel on my own to many obscure places around the world. Never for an instant experiencing loneliness or fear or boredom. And so I'm like, well, what was that? What was that? In recent times I've started to understand a whole lot more about it. And through my life I've always had an internal dialogue, so there's at least been 2 of us in here. But then I've come to realise that there were in actual fact many. And I've said for many years, I've said that I am Legion, because there are many who reside here. And I've done videos and I've wrote in my book. If any of you are interested in this supernatural stuff, along with all different sorts of other subjects, then you really should read my book. And how many of you have bought the book and you've turned a few pages and that's as far as you've got? What is it that's preventing you from knowledge? It's a very, very bizarre phenomenon that people can't actually get through books. I'm buying books on a weekly basis and I'm reading every single day, and I've been doing that for the past 16 years. It's an amazing, incredible source of meditation, of solitude, of silence, and of concentration and pondering. These things that the vast majority of people have lost the ability to be able to do these days. And that in itself is another phenomenon. It's a transition in the wrong direction for the human being, and it's, you know, a very disconcerting thing to realise. And then when you have people like me who overtly speak about these things and tell you, the viewer, the huge differences what I find about myself and the vast other people. And there's only one other person that I have ever heard who speaks like I do, so openly, so close to the bone, and so knowingly. And we're like, well, fucking why us? Why us? Why is it that we are just simply light years outside of the regular consciousness of humanity? And this person, I've invited him for a chat, and he said he would want to, but yet nothing's manifest, and so he's still got to assimilate what that would mean to him. And so he says he watches all my videos, so you're watching this one, and so you can't talk to anybody else. You've already said that. I can't talk to anybody else, hardly anybody else. Most certainly not about all the things that I've discovered, because very, very few people have had these experiences. And so if we can't talk to each other, who the fuck can we talk to? What do we do? Do we know when there's people out there and we just shy away from it because we are insecure about what that would mean? What would our viewers think, or what would our ego's reaction be to it if that person, you know, knows a little bit more than me on a certain subject matter? What if this person's going to ask me questions that my ego can't answer and I can't answer? What does it mean? You see, the insecurity, the fear comes in when you've got people who proclaim to be fearless, and then when, you know, the opportunity arises, they're nowhere to be seen. Well, it's curious, isn't it? It's curious. So, you know, I'll just continue doing what I'm doing, being the black sheep of the family, being obscure, the variety of person that nobody wants to acknowledge is in the room. I'm the elephant in the room, I am. And when you look at the professional, so-called professional, clinical fraternities that are so far away from just admitting that there are at least two spirits. What's this saying that it's a couple of 300 years old? Alas, there are two souls dwelling within my breast. Well, when is science going to get their heads around that? Probably never. Why? Because they haven't got a fucking clue what this would mean. And they don't have a clue what consciousness is or any fucking thing. And they're just playing in their stupid, fucked up shit of pretense. Pretending that they know something when they absolutely don't fucking know anything. Because this whole fucking thing isn't physical in any shape or form. It's all Maya. And they are in that Maya, pretending that things are physical and pretending that they know what's going on in the human mind and in the human brain and the body, when they simply do not. And so I keep saying, and there's very, very few people out there who are saying the same thing. One of the guys that's saying the same thing, he's a professional. He's the guy that I believe he invented the first processing computers, the CPU unit, and his name is Federico Fagin. Federico Fagin. He's Italian, and his name is spelled Faggin, like Fagin. Federico, not Frederico. And he's saying that we just have to absolutely start to embrace the phenomenon of intuition, the phenomenon of consciousness, because it's consciousness which enables everything to manifest. Nothing would manifest without consciousness, and so how can you possibly leave it out of the equation? It's preposterous on so many levels. And when you look at it, it's like the human being is either really, 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 really dumb, or there's some fucking evil over the world which is preventing anybody from uttering such things. And there's only a very, very few people, such as myself, Fajin, and Falconer, that would dare utter this sort of stuff. Now, bizarre as it seems, you do have people working with these family systems, internal family systems, talking about parts which was, internal family systems was created by a physician, psychologist, in about 1947. I think the guy's name was Schwartz. And so he started to investigate issues with families and this, that and the other. And he started to realise that there are agencies within many individuals. Jung had been talking about this from the very early 1900s. And so it's nothing new, people. Madame Blavatsky, writing her books, Isis Unveiled and The Secret Doctrine, from 1870, something like that, these things have been known. You know, goodness me, Plato, Aristotle, lots of ancient philosophers have spoken about all these different sorts of stuff, and yet in the West it's closed down. It's massively closed down, and so the vast majority of people are subject to this closing down. They're subject to not daring even to consider that they are a collection of spirits, a collection of entities, a collection of egregoric energies which have manifest throughout their lives due to certain situations. And I've always said that, well, for instance, I mean, there's a warrior within me. And the evidence of the warrior within me is that I was chosen to lead my country in full contact karate for several years. I was a member of the British full contact karate team, representing Great Britain in world-class tournaments. And so that's the extent of my warrior. Then there's the adventurer. This character, persona, alter ego that's took me around the world, visiting 45 countries, many of those visiting multiple times and living in them. And then of course you've got the musician, and then the singer, and you know, the creative person, and the orator, the guru, the teacher, you know, all these different sorts of things, and they're all very, very individual. And so in my internal systems therapy, she doesn't call it that, it's called something else. And I asked her the other day, what's the difference between the one that she's espousing and family constellations and internal family systems? And she said, well, I can't tell you what they are, but I can tell you what this one is. And I'm like, how is it that so many people just don't seem to peer over the fence to see what's going on with their neighbours? What is this level of ignorance? It's just unimaginable for a mind like mine. I'm peeping over everybody's fence. I'm eavesdropping on everybody's fucking doors. I want to know what's going on in the whole vicinity. That's my nature. And that's why over the years I've collected an enormous amount of varying information. And so I know a vast amount more about lots of things than you know, most of these so-called intellectuals, because they're so tunnel vision. They've got a PhD and this, that and the other, and that's all they fucking know mostly. But you've got people like Rupert Sheldrake, who's another outsider, and he's very much into the paranormal and phenomenological. Only he doesn't speak about the paranormal. He tries to put it into a scientific context, so he doesn't get fucking hung, drawn and quartered. But he's still very much an outcast. And then you've got people like Thinking Aloud, Jeffrey Mishlove, who is a parapsychology or got a fucking PhD in parapsychology, and so he interviews many very interesting people. And so he was interviewing Robert Falconer, speaking about all these things, and there's lots of interviews with Mishlove and Falconer. on Thinking Aloud. And so they're speaking about these things, speaking about exorcism, speaking about attachments. And I don't know, fucking 7-8 years ago, I was making videos about demonic, or not necessarily demonic, but more like gremlin energies, gremlin mischievous energies which attach on a person and cause mischief until you confront them. And when you confront them, they have little power. And as soon as you shine a light on them, then they will vacate. They're very, very similar to the entities in the astral world. The entities in the astral world, as far as I can gather, my experience, and let's say I've had 20 experiences of varying varieties with these entities. And they will try and fuck with you. They will come out of the astral into the so-called physical, and they will sit on you, they will breathe on you, they will fucking talk to you, they will manifest in demonic fucking shapes and things like that, and they want to intimidate you. But other than that, they can't do anything. They can't attack you, they can't keep you terrified on an ongoing basis. As soon as you face them up, as soon as you're not afraid, you go through to the next level. There's many, many levels in this astral, and I started in the very, very dark and grainy level. And it was always sinister in this dark, grainy level. But you keep persisting, you keep going through, you keep going through, you keep going through. And until, in the end, the last out-of-body experience I had, it was so beautiful, technicolor. It was immaculate. It was gorgeous. It was literally like you could describe heaven itself without a single blemish. And the humanoids in there, like the women, were absolutely stunning, and everything about it was just joyous, pure joy. And since then, I've not been allowed back in. And when I tried subsequently, I would get negative energies crawling all over me, just very, very thick and dense, and they would be doing this when I was attempting to enter into the astral. They didn't want me there, and I don't know what that would the reason why, but what I did say when I was first starting out on these on this astral journey, I decided that I really wanted to do that, and I'll be happy when I am absolutely conclusive that I've been there and I've seen some wonderful things which are just very, very conclusive, and I couldn't doubt it at all. And on this last time, I was absolutely compos mentis when I was there, and I was looking around this very bizarre experience, the world as we know it. I was in Italy, it appeared, and there's two women, and they were sexually involved with me, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I was in this Italian farmhouse, and all the pine furniture and beautiful pastel shades, and the sun gleaming through the window. It was incredible. And so I achieved my objective, and as soon as I achieved my objective, because I asked the cosmos, I said, that's what I want. And so the cosmos gave me what I want, and now it doesn't enable me to get back in. And so then I went on to other things. I went on to psychedelics and other areas of the paranormal, and it's kind of like, well, you don't need to spend any more time here, you know it. And it's kind of like with the DMT. The DMT is kind of like show me all it can show me, because it's very, very similar all the time. And it's kind of like, when you get the message, hang up the phone. But I enjoy it from time to time. Mushrooms, I'm pretty well cool with that. I'll still keep dabbling with it, from time to time, just to see, just like a fox or a rat on one of their runs. You just keep going back to where you actually found something, and you just keep seeing if there's anything else there, because these experiences were so incredible. And but the experiences for me, they're getting far and far few between. I don't feel the need. I think I could even go like 1 year without doing any DMT, and 2 or 3 years without doing any mushrooms, because I'm settled in that I've learned what I need to learn from these things. But just getting back now to this internal family systems sort of thing, speaking about the parts. Well, for those of you that are interested in my therapy, I'm telling her about these parts, and I've known about these parts for many years, and I've had a whole bunch of experiences which I don't know whether she wants to hear really. It's kind of like, it's bizarre because all she seems to be interested in is a very narrow parameter of service, which is sticking to the book. Because at the end of the day, I'm recording her, aren't I? And so I don't think she's going to be expanding too much outside of her professional parameters. And that's just, you know, how it is. And I'm going to say to her on one of these occasions, I'm going to say, do you know what I'm doing here with this recording? I'm way ahead of my time. It's going to be a thing of the future. In actual fact, I would think it's going to be law, you know, within no time at all. All you're going to need is for one person to scream abuse or sexual attack or something like that, and then that's it. The law's going to change and everything will be recorded. Of course it has to be, because you're dealing with a lot of shit. And when I was listening to Robert Falconer, he was speaking about how in his fraternity people are petrified of lawsuits, because people will scream copper any given opportunity if they can't handle something that manifests within them. And so, you know, it's a very volatile and precarious, potentially hazardous realm, and I can appreciate where these therapists are coming from on that. But there most certainly are a whole myriad of entities which dwell within us, and the more complex we are as individuals, the more of them we have. If you're a very dim state of consciousness, like we've all known them, they don't even have an internal monologue, let alone an internal dialogue. There's fuck all going on. It's kind of like they are very new souls, and when you look into their eyes look like those of babies. There's nothing in them. There's no trauma, there's no knowledge, there's no deep-rooted earth experience. There's just like, you know, wide baby's eyes, you know, receptive to the world, but never actually receive anything. They never actually receive anything, and they don't seem to learn from their experience, and they don't know anything anymore the day they die than when they were born. And you know, how many people have I asked who are in the 70s, 80s and 90s how they feel about death, and they've told me that they've never actually thought about it. And I'm like, you could die fucking tomorrow and you've never thought about it? Cunts people. Just fucking. And then, you know, people have the audacity to proclaim that everybody is conscious. Well, everybody may have one fucking atom of consciousness, but, you know, some of us have trillions and gazillions, and there is a massive difference. So, slowly humanity will be entering into these paranormal realms, because this whole thing is paranormal. This whole thing is metaphysical. There is no physicality, and that's a fact that cannot be disputed. For this past 120 years, there simply is no matter here. And so now, even quantum physicists are starting to speak about many worlds. They've got many worlds hypothesis, and multiple universes, and all this different sort of thing. And they say that the universes are infinite. Well, I mean, if they start talking about infinite universes, then they really do start to have to consider all different sorts of supernatural and paranormal activity within all this, because we have to at some stage accept our ignorance. It's absolutely blind. The human being is so blind these days with the poison and the advent of the so-called Enlightenment, the Renaissance, you know, whereby the Industrial Revolution came about and science is more pronounced, and everybody's just been beguiled and embroiled within this fiction, scientism, people. It's just another ism. It's just a stage that the human beings have gone through, and it's going to be very, very short-lived, because now with the advent of quantum computers, we are getting very, very deeply seated into the metaphysical, and it's a realm which is going to be destabilizing the whole of humanity. That's why the ego has fought against it. The collective ego has fought against this for so long, because it knows that it's going to be obsolete. It knows that it's going to be redundant. There's going to be needing to be something else which is going to be taken over from the ego. What's that going to be? It's going to be spirit, it's going to be entities, it's going to be a higher state of consciousness, it's going to be all these wonderful things that we used to have thousands of years ago. It has to come back. Things go round in circles. So we're going to be more telepathic, more clairvoyant, more intuitive. We're going to be able to engage in necromancy and all different sorts of things. This is the way forward, and all we need to do is to feel comfortable in doing that, instead of having the proverbial bucket of crabs scenario where all the crabs are going to be pulling everyone back down again if one crab tries to get outside of the bucket. It's got to end. But even now, it's only very, very tentatively beginning, and you know, if it wasn't for the advent of YouTube, then we would never know about it. We wouldn't. And it's only scouting through millions and billions of YouTube videos with the potential that if you start looking for this stuff, then the odd person pioneering in this region makes manifest. And then you can start to see, oh, a few other people talk about it, and you can start to think, oh, well, you know, this is, you know, getting about, but it's not getting about. It's getting about in your fucking algorithm. But you talk to your neighbour, you talk to a politician, you talk to a fucking billionaire, you talk to a so-called intellectual, and they won't know anything about it. It's not getting out, people. It's not getting anywhere outside of here. There's only a very, very few of us who are tuned into that. And you know, it's the whole thing in the Bible. Only 144,000 will go on, will be risen. And this 144, 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9, people. 9 is the number for consciousness. It's the symbol for consciousness, and the Bible was written in numerical code. And so whenever you see there's 144,000, and then there's 36 this, and then there's 7 that, and all that, it's all numerology, people. And they knew about this stuff a long, long time ago, and I suppose they wrote all that stuff in the hope that eventually we'll start to realise what the fuck was going on back then. Anyway, over and out.